Hey there. Hey there. Welcome to this week's episode of Next Level Play Therapy. And in this week's episode, I want to talk about one of play therapists' favorite favorite thing to do in play therapy, said no play therapist ever, or I would even say said no mental health therapist ever. And that is documentation. I think, especially for play therapists, and I'd be curious what you guys think. Feel free to post in the comments. What is your, I feel like for play therapists, documentation, especially progress notes and treatment plans, feels even more challenging than regular, I would say, general mental health writing, progress notes and treatment plans. Because the thing that I found, and I hear this over and over and over, is how the heck do you make playing sound professional and that it is actually therapeutic in nature? Like, how do you write progress notes about doing play therapy activities in a way that sounds like you're doing more than just playing? Or how do you write a play therapy treatment plan that actually kind of maps out what you're going to be doing in the play therapy process using play in a way that actually, one, it's useful and not just a box you have to check off and say done to appease the documentation gods. But also, how do you make it sound professional and that it actually is therapeutic? Like, how do you break that down into something that is cohesive and useful? And that is exactly what I want to talk about today. Documentation and how to what you need to do in order to have that professional, grounded, cohesive documentation story that you're telling about your clients' participation in the change process. So if you're joining me live today on this week's live stream episode, I would love to know who's here. Go ahead and post in the comments. I'd love to know what population you work with. Are you using play therapy? How are you finding your documentation? How is that going for you? And for those of you who are watching on the replay, feel free to post your name in the comments. Where are you? What population are you working with? And your documentation, how's that going for you in play therapy if you're using play therapy? And for those of you who are listening on the podcast, I would love your feedback as well. Also, if you find this information useful, please feel free to share it across your social media platforms. And if you are listening on a podcast, please feel free to leave a review. I always like getting feedback. Is it useful? Are the topics useful for you in the work that you're doing? Because that is the purpose, is really to kind of support the work that you're doing in play therapy. So let's get started for today. First thing that I wanted to talk about is using that golden thread analogy. How many of you have heard of the golden thread analogy in relation to your documentation? So let me explain what the golden thread analogy is and how you can use that for your documentation. So also, if you're interested, so today I'm going to tell you kind of what you need to do in order to create a framework that's going to help you write your documentation in a way that is cohesive and makes sense. I'm going to also, at the end, if you're interested, I have a flash sale going on this week on my I call it a documentation bundle. This is my giving thanks for one, the work that I get to do. This was, for all of us who are in the mental health, most of us anyway, I would say, we feel like this is a calling. And so kind of helps us feel like we are making a difference in people's lives. And I have been very fortunate to be able to do this for over 30 years now. And I love the work that I'm doing. And also now I really feel grateful that I get to be able to pass on knowledge, do trainings and teachings. I love Play Therapy Academy, 2 groups that I have to help the next generation of play therapists really develop competency. It's my online consultation program. I feel there's such an amazing group of people in Play Therapy Academy, and I love doing the trainings. I meet some really awesome people, and we get to share and be nerdy together. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. And we're in the season of gratitude and giving thanks. So this week I have a documentation bundle, your case conceptualization that's going to help with your psychosocial assessments and formulating. That's like the foundation in order to do your treatment plans and then also your progress notes. So all of these 3 go really hand in hand for that foundation of what exactly do you do and how do you do that. So in the courses, I take a deep dive into showing you how to do that. So I will talk a little bit more about that at the end if you're interested. The sale starts today. It ends on Saturday. And it's going to go deeper into the topics that we're going to be talking about today. So first is the golden thread analogy. And what exactly is the golden thread analogy when you're talking about documentation? So it's kind of a metaphor. Think of taking a golden thread and weaving it together, sewing together your case conceptualization and your treatment plan and your progress note. It's what ties all of them together. And so when you're thinking about what are you writing for your treatment plan, it's going to be connected to your psychosocial assessment. Your psychosocial assessment is the foundation for your case conceptualization. Skipping that psychosocial assessment or not really doing a thorough psychosocial assessment at the very beginning will impact negatively your case conceptualization. And your case conceptualization is how are you identifying what is at the root of the problem and why is the problem happening? So in your psychosocial assessment, you want to ask a lot of questions, and knowing the right questions to ask and why you need to ask them is really important for creating that or developing your really strong case conceptualization. So, and then you're using your case conceptualization, also that psychosocial assessment, all of those things you've identified, these now become the foundation for what you're going to focus on in the change process. And then that becomes the foundation for your treatment plan. So the whole treatment planning process ultimately ends up with an actual treatment plan, which I also call like your roadmap. This is your GPS, as we would say, helping you figure out how do you get from the beginning of treatment to the end of treatment. And then your progress notes tell the week-to-week story of what's going on in your client's treatment process. So I like to think of documentation more of like your client's story. How are you telling their story. First, you're formulating that case conceptualization of identifying what's going on. And in your psychosocial assessment, you're going to figure out who are all the cast of characters in your client's life: siblings, extended family members, parents, all of that 3-generational history, to give a better understanding, greater depth of your client. So you're coming in at one little moment in the history of this child's life and in the history of this child's family that's generational. What gets passed down from generation to generation. So really knowing what questions to ask and why you need to ask them is really, really important in order to really fully understand what is at the root of the problem and what are the patterns sustaining it. So then you know what needs to happen in order to change. So yes, the other thing that comes up that we have to think about is assessment is ongoing. It's not one and done. We're not going to know everything at the beginning. That being said, I've had people say to me, oh, it's not that big of a deal. And then, like, one of the things we do a lot in Play Therapy Academy when people do their case presentation is they go through a set of questions that are designed to help formulate that case conceptualization. And how is that influencing what are you doing in the treatment process? Because the question comes up all the time, right? What do you want to know? How do I help my client? You're not really going to fully understand how to help your client if you don't really know what's going on, because you haven't taken the time to do that thorough assessment and then see how that unfolds over the course of treatment. So that's that ongoing assessment process where we take what we've identified in the beginning and then how that unfolds over time. That's your client's story, right? You're going to capture that in the progress notes, how it unfolds from session to session to session. So in the story, these are your chapters. Every week is a new chapter. And how is that client doing on this journey of healing from session to session? And the treatment plan is kind of like your roadmap that helps you know where you're going to be going. And also, if you kind of get lost, you can go back to your treatment plan, go back to your case conceptualization, review that. Maybe it needs to be adjusted. So you take the time to adjust it. Or maybe it's still valid and you just need to get back on track. So that, to me, that's the golden thread. And if you keep the golden thread in mind, it kind of trains your mind to think about what you need to be doing what you need to be writing in your progress notes, what needs to go in your treatment plan. All of those start with good case conceptualization, which starts with that psychosocial assessment and knowing what to write in there. So the second thing is that I want to review for today is how do you, in that golden thread analogy, you want to make sure that you're aligning your documentation and your case conceptualization with your play therapy theoretical model. So your assessment, your case conceptualization, and your treatment plan and your progress notes are all going to be heavily influenced by your play therapy theoretical model, because the theoretical model is what influences how do you make sense of what's going on with your client and how are you going to help them? What are you going to do in the sessions? So, for example, Adlerian play therapy is going to conceptualize what's going on for the client and what do they need to do to get better is gonna be different than if you are using child-centered play therapy. How you conceptualize what's going on and why it's happening is going to look much different than Adlerian play therapy, and what you do in sessions is going to look differently. So that's going to influence your treatment plan and your progress notes. So just FYI, if you've listened to any of my previous podcasts or watched any of my previous live streams, you will know I have 2 dogs. And my husband has now gone off to work, and Luna, our bigger dog, I think she's probably like 50 pounds, maybe. She's a little overweight. She is now in the room. Yep, she's right behind me. She hears me saying her name. So if you hear any strange sounds like moaning and scratching and some weird sounds in the background, that is my dog Luna rolling around, scratching and moaning and being my companion for this morning. She's heard me say her name a few times, so she might be leaving. Yep, she's leaving. She'll be back and forth. So, getting back on track. Yep, there she goes. Getting back on track. So here's the thing. So if we stay in the story metaphor, using the golden thread to tell the story of your client's journey in the play therapy process, then think of your play therapy theoretical model as the language that you're going to use. So every language has its own nuances to words and how you phrase things. French, are you speaking French? Are you speaking English? Are you speaking Spanish? They're all going to have different nuances to the words and the language and how you communicate and the meaning of what is being communicated. So think of your play therapy theoretical model as the language that you're going to use to write your documentation. Also, how you're conceptualizing what's going on and what the problem is, what the patterns are, sustaining it, identifying any resiliency factors, and then that's going to influence what you're doing in the play therapy change model. So the thing is, you're also going to use that language in your treatment plan and in your progress notes. That's how you tie them all together, is you're using that language of child-centered play therapy in your treatment plan and in your progress notes. You are using the language of Adlerian play therapy to write your treatment plan and to write your progress notes. If you're using CBT play therapy, you are using CBT to write your treatment plans and your progress notes. Even if you're using an integrative model, your integrative model is made up of theories. And so you're using the theories and integrating them into a model. So you want to make sure to use the language of the theories that you are using to facilitate healing for your client. So the other thing you want to think about is you can use your play therapy. This is what I do. I don't know about you guys, but you have your session, and then you have to write your progress note about your session. One of the things that I've found useful, when you start using a framework, you begin to kind of train your brain to go into that mode to develop language and phrasing when you're writing your progress notes and when you're writing your treatment plan. So it's kind of helping you to hone in on your conceptualization skills and identify those themes in the sessions, and then using that information to write your progress notes. Also, it's really useful to review your treatment plans with clients like every 3 to 6 months It's one, to make sure you're still on track and you can make adjustments as necessary. But this also sends the message to your clients and their parents that they have a vital role in the change process, and you're engaging them in that discussion about, hey, how are we doing? Let's take this time to see how we're doing, what's going on. I can't tell you how many times that I've done that when I've reviewed treatment plans periodically, and I get more information than I would have if I had just kind of gone along session to session. I think it's really useful to have that dedicated time to go back and review your treatment plans and kind of see where you are, get their feedback. It's a time to really see how they think they're doing, where do they think they've made some progress, and um, use that to kind of help you figure out where they are in the change process. So, you're going to include, for play therapists, we're looking developmentally at the age and developmental ability of our clients to figure out how they'll be involved in that change process, as far as like reviewing treatment plans and getting that feedback. I would say most definitely we are doing that work with parents and getting their feedback along the way. And then depending on the age of the child, how are you going to involve them in that process as well? So that is it for today. What we have been talking about today is how to write great play therapy documentation quickly and easily. Once you get this framework in place and you've kind of got your brain trained, it does start to come more quickly. And then what you find is you have much more cohesive documentation that tells the story of your client's journey in the change process, helps keep you on track. And that's how you're able to get those really good outcomes for your clients, better healing, because you're kind of focused and you have a sense of what's going on. You've kind of got your brain continually being renewed about that process. The thing is, so I'm going to give a quick recap, and then I will kind of go over my documentation bundle that I have going on to help you go much deeper into this process. Today, I'm kind of telling you what it is. In these documentation bundles, I go really deep. We go step by step. I break everything down using case examples. It's not possible to do that usually I try to keep these to 30 minutes or usually around 40 minutes. It's not possible to do that in just these little short kind of weekly live streams or the weekly podcast. So the courses are really designed to take you deeper in there. So the first thing we want to start with is you're looking at that golden thread analogy, where you're thinking of a golden thread weaving together your client's treatment storyline together with your client to get a sense of what the problem is, which is your psychosocial assessment, which is the foundation of your case conceptualization. And it's also going to, your psychosocial assessment is going to help you formulate the diagnosis to kind of give you a better sense of what's going on with your client, helping you also, you're using that information to formulate your case conceptualization. And then what's the plan to solve it is the treatment planning process that ultimately results in a treatment plan. And then how is this journey going? What's going on from chapter to chapter throughout the story, where there's a beginning, a middle, and end, hopefully. Sometimes clients prematurely end treatment. That always, that happens. But the goal is you want to be able to tell that story through your documentation, your progress notes, from session to session to session. That's the storyline, the beginning, middle, and end in your documentation. So the other thing is you want to make sure that you are aligning your case conceptualization and your treatment plan and your progress notes with your play therapy theoretical model, because your theory model is going to influence how you make sense of what's going on with your clients, what the problem is, and what patterns are sustaining it, why is it happening, and then that's going to influence what you're going to do in session, but that's also going to be influenced by your play therapy theoretical model, including when you are using an integrative model, because your integrative model is still based on different theoretical models that will also influence how do you make sense of what's going on with your client and why this problem is happening. And then what are you going to be doing in session? How are you going to be helping them? What things do you focus on in each stage of the change process, beginning, middle, and end? Your play therapy theoretical model is going to influence how you determine what stage they're in and what you're doing in each stage of the change process. And the other thing is, I like to think of your play therapy theoretical model as the language you are speaking. So we know the language is play for play therapists. We say play is the language of children. Well, your play therapy theoretical model will determine what language you're speaking in your play therapy sessions. Are you speaking Adlerian play therapy? Are you speaking psychodynamic play therapy? Are you speaking child-centered play therapy? Are you speaking attachment-focused family play therapy? That's your theoretical model language. So your language, you're going to use that language in your treatment plan and your progress notes. So, and you're going to think about your progress notes as weaving the storyline together from beginning, middle to end of the treatment process with your client. So as you're writing your progress notes, you're thinking about the themes that occurred in the session and how are you making sense of what those themes mean. That's your play therapy model. And then you're kind of using that to write your progress notes, but you can also use that to kind of help you figure out where they are in the change process and how are they progressing with their treatment plan to get successfully to the end of treatment, which means they have overcome whatever problems that they've been experiencing. And I've found once you train your brain to kind of think this way, it starts flowing a little bit more naturally. So that is it for today. If you are interested in the play therapy documentation bundle, it's my Giving Thanks documentation bundle. The sale has started today. It ends on Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time, because I'm here in Pacific time. It's basically you are getting 3 courses for almost the price of 2 courses. And then the first course is Getting Grounded in Play Therapy Case Conceptualization, walks you through the questions you need to ask and why you need to ask them. That's an important part. If you skip that part, then you're probably, from my experience, going to miss a lot of information that is needed to help you really get to the bottom of what's going on. And then you use that as the foundation for your case conceptualization, which is an ongoing process. And having good case conceptualization at the beginning to get started is key for knowing how to write your treatment plan, which brings us to the second course in the bundle, which is Getting Grounded, Writing Play Therapy Treatment Plans. How do you write a treatment plan that actually is useful about helping your client with using play therapy. So in the treatment planning course, I break down the treatment planning process, so that's going to help you figure out what needs to go in the treatment plan. And then I break it down to walk you step by step using case examples as well, like how to write a goal, how to write the objectives, how to write a cohesive treatment plan that actually is going to be useful and will meet the requirements of most agencies and insurance companies about play therapy using your theoretical model. So there's a lot of case examples in there using different theory models to help you figure out what it might look like in different ones. And there are, in both of these, there are some, I would call them workbooks that I walk you through so that you can use maybe one of your clients to walk through that process and see what that would look like for your specific clients in your specific agency setting. And then the third one in the bundle is Getting Grounded, Writing Play Therapy Progress Notes. So how do you write progress notes about play therapy that actually makes sense, looks professional? And the thing about progress notes is there's a lot of bad information out there, I think, because the intent is good around some of the bad information, still bad information. So the key for progress notes is I think of it as like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You don't want to do too little. You don't want to do too much. You want to do just right. So where's that just right mark that you're not spending hours and hours writing progress notes, because that gets exhausting. So kind of training your brain how to, I walk you through how do you figure out themes in play therapy, and then how do you use that information in your progress notes? And then how do you write those progress notes using a format that's going to connect to your treatment plan, that is going to meet agency and insurance standards and actually be useful. I actually use my progress note my progress note writing to kind of help me conceptualize what happened in the session and then get that in a quick progress note. So I give you templates in there. There are, again, case examples, walking you step by step through writing progress notes, using different theory models to kind of give you an idea of what a progress note might look like using different theory models. So if you're interested, it's going away on Saturday. It's not going to be available again anytime soon. I don't often do bundles, but I thought it might be useful to a lot of people, since these are things that people struggle with, all three of these. So if you're interested, you want to pop over to my website, rhplaytherapytraining.com, and take advantage of that documentation bundle before it ends on Saturday. And I will see you guys next week. Bye for now.